Kurtzman. She was a civilian, veteran, and the wife of a veteran of World War II.
When you put the stamp, you would write free, and if it went to a military person, you wouldn't have to pay. So it was cool, you know, because at one time I was writing to 23 different guys, because I worked at the Air Force Base. I worked at the Air Force Base, and I met a lot of fellows there. And then my brother was in the Army, and he was in the Philippines, and he was a commissioned officer. I mean, he was commissioned on the field. In other words, the commanding officer was killed, and they commissioned him, right? He didn't have to go to West Point or whatever. I mean, he was commissioned, it's called Lieutenant Field Commission, and he would give me names of guys that never got any mail, and he says, just write to them, tell them, you know, what movies you see or jokes, and at that time, the moron jokes were really big then. so we used to just run them off on the mimeograph machine and send them to all the guys, you know. And so it was nice because we could just write free on that. And of course, all us young ladies, we entertained at the USO. I belonged to a group from the Catholic Church where I belonged, and it was called the USEttes. And we would go, we had a certain weeks that our group would take charge of the USO, and then different groups, sororities and different things like that. And so we would take our turn. In fact, I was on duty at the USO the day that Franklin Delano Roosevelt died, and we had to shut all the jukeboxes because they had, in memory of him, they didn't want any music, so it was kind of hard to entertain the guys without, you know, you had to be kind of serious. You couldn't, you know, party or anything. So we played mostly cards and stuff like that. Now, if you want the blackouts, when we used to have to get into our hall, you know, when they'd ring the bell, you know, we'd always have to get into the hall in the middle of the house because you couldn't have any lights out, because they said even a lit match could be seen from the air, you know, and so they used to tell us that. And but if you want any question, anything that I say, I mean, you can go ahead. And let's see. And I said it was you know, you never thought anything of getting in a car with a strange person then like you would now. I don't know. People were just, I don't know, maybe more honest, and they were more concerned about the war. I think everybody was so patriotic. They wanted to do all that they could do for that. And of course, we all made vegetable gardens. Of course, they don't grow very much in Arizona because we didn't have much water, you know, rain where I lived. So, but my mom did have a little bit of a garden. And of course, there was a lot of black market going on. You're familiar with that? I mean, that's where people would get, like, people that worked at the air bases, a lot of them would take home, like, especially cigarettes. Boy, you could get good money for cigarettes in the year that the war ended. So I was only in from May until December. And oddly enough, on December the 7th of 1945 was the day that I got my discharge. And I had met my husband, let's see, I met him in, oh gosh, I think September of 45. And then I used to come and visit his family out here in Shelby. He used to live out on Crestline. I said I was going to quit at the Air Force Base and I was going to go and join. And they thought I was kidding. And here, and they called me and I went in and I got my discharge. But I want to show you, well, see, and this is the Purple Heart. This is the Victory Medal, and this is the Good Conduct Medal. And then this is for the European. And then here's his clusters. And he was in the Bloody Red One. And this cord is interesting. I'll have to tell you about this cord. I just found out. It's called the Cord de Guerre, which means the cord of war. It was the honor that the French gave the Americans that landed on Normandy, because that was the part that really freed the French then. So, the French have just decided that they're going to give a thank you. It's called a Thank You America certificate, and it's for all these guys that got this Cord de Guerre. And so there was a man in the Mansfield paper. His name is John Ray Pugh, and he said that you could get the address on here. So I wrote him a letter, and he just sent me the form. I just got it today where I can send to get that. I don't know what it is. It's called a Thank You America certificate, but I thought it ought to go in the collection there. These are called, these are enamel crests, and they used to be worn on the lapels of their uniforms, and they're obsolete now because they don't use them anymore. I don't think they use them anymore. And then these are just some of the ribbons that friends of mine have, and then these are Air Force wings, bombardier. Oh, let's see what I mean. There's bombardier and artillery, and then that's a regular pilot's wings. And there's paratrooper.
So these are just items you've collected over the years, not necessarily ones that were yours or your husband.
No, this was my brother's, and this is from Australia, and this is all of these. A lot of these have a story. You know, I mean, the people that have given them to me or things like that. And so I'm just called the wound medal or the mother's medal. Like when a guy got, isn't it cheesy looking for losing your son? It looks like 10. It's like, I mean, you know, oh God, I mean, you know, my son died in war. I would think they would give you something that at least gold-plated, you know. And then these are some, see, my husband didn't collect all this stuff. A lot of this stuff was given to him. I think this is the only thing that he had, that he found. Because they used to booby trap the stuff. You know, they would set them up on purpose. They'd, like when you go into a farm or something, you go in the house, and the GIs would, the greedy ones would go and start opening drawers to see what they could collect for souvenir. And then it had two items that I cannot find. I don't know whether I have loaned them to somebody or where they are. One of them was a very interesting paratrooper knife. It had a thing that you press this thing and the blade would shoot out on one side, and on the other side it had an ice pick. Wicked looking thing. Isn't that something? And a lot of them have a story. See, this was, I did short patrol duty when I was in the Navy, and this was my arm patch. And this is the air base where I worked in Tucson, 2nd Air Force. And that's the bloody red one, the one my husband has in. And this is my brother's. He belonged to the Bushmasters from the Philippines, that helped the Philippines. My brother was an MP. He gave me that badge. And this is off of some kind of a foreign, you know, what they call these things that they have on their shoulder, epaulets or something like that. Something like that. It's from some place. And this is a real old one. Somebody gave me. This looks like, you know, something back in the colonial days.
And, is this another one of those cords?
Yeah. Now some of these things is ROTC. That I had already put those on there, and so they told me just leave them there. You know, I mean, if someday I decide to. And this is the China, India, Burma theater. And the editor of the Mansfield News Journal, Tom Brennan, his father gave me that. He was a friend of my husband's. And he was on that one. And there's a lot, like I said, a lot of new ones on there. And I have overseas 598 days of actual fighting on the front lines, okay? And for that, he got $1,170. And then for the time that he was in the United States before he went over, you know, the training and all this stuff, for that he got, I forget, let's see, for that he was just 240 days. So adding the 8 months onto the whole total of plus, like, in other words, the 4 years plus the 8 months that he was here in the States, his whole total pay for 4 years and 8 months in the service was $1,190, and 2 brothers that were in the Army, and then that's why I decided to join the Navy. And we made my mom pretty proud. And in those days, if you had a son or a daughter in the service, you got to put a star on your, a blue star on your window. And if your son got killed in the war, then they had a gold star. So we were lucky that my 2 brothers came back, And my mom used to be real religious, and she used to pray all the time, you know, for my brother when he was in the service, my two brothers. And she was doing a blessing and sending it to my son, and my dad says to her, how do you know where the Philippines or Okinawa or Guadalcanal is? She says, how do you know what direction to send your blessing? She was sending a blessing. She said, never mind, God will see that it gets there. She said, but she was, you know, always would say a prayer for us, and we all did return to Shelby from Japan. And it's in pretty bad shape. But that's one that he had, that was given to him. And so I think I've covered some of the stuff that I thought, you know, you would find. And and this is, it's hard to hold because it's so heavy, but my grandson, Jeff, he graduated from Pittsburgh Art Institute. He made this, and that's made with fiberglass, and 343 men that were killed and missing after Pearl Harbor Day. Just that day. And then, of course, on December the 8th, and then that's when President Roosevelt declared war, right at the 8th. They didn't fool around. They did that. And then, of course, out of that group, there were also, besides that amount, there were 1,842 of them that were wounded. A lot of them died after, you know, they never figured this out. Come here. Can you figure out what this is going on? He was stationed where it was very cold in Alaska, and then he's doing his job and it's freezing. Look at your